Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. I'm Paul Davenport, Boast resident tech journalist and head of content. And today I am thrilled to welcome to the show Ahmed Hadjeres, founder and principal electrical engineer at ProductShop. Every day, Ahmed and his team help quickly bring innovative ideas to life with in-house expertise and cutting-edge technology that cannot be matched. Based in Montreal, there's a venture studio with deep stack engineering capabilities that help develop game-changing solutions. Med himself combines his ETS-trained engineering skills with an entrepreneur's mindset, having founded a cutting-edge access control and payment hardware company, while also leading R&D initiatives as an entrepreneur in residence for a major events brand. It's an impressive resume, and I can't wait to pick Ahmed's brains on what it takes to succeed in Canada and what's on the roadmap for ProductShop going forward. So, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Really great introduction, actually. You do it better than I do. No, we should use that more often in my meetings.
I will send
So
you the transcript and you can lip it off. I love it.
thanks for taking the time. I'm happy to be on your podcast here. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're relaunching the podcast after taking a bit of a pause, and I was pumped that we could get you on the show just because, again, our team speaks highly of you. We love the work that you're doing, and Joshua in particular on our team. When we meet up in a couple weeks, I'm really excited to grab a drink with Tim and you and really talk shop. But for the sake of this show, I'd love to hear. Tell me about yourself. How did you get into the tech space? What sparked your entrepreneurial spirit? And yeah, how'd you get into the game in the first place?
Yeah, that's actually a funny story. So the story starts when I started university, engineering school at ETS, as you said, at electrical engineering. I love music shows, and I was broke, so I needed free tickets. So which best way to get free tickets is to work in the industry, right? So I got a buddy of mine who was working in the event space, and he's like, "Hey, we're looking to build some hardware and software, and you're a hardware engineer." I'm like, student training hardware engineer, but like, let's just say it for the sake of the conversation. And he basically told me, "Hey, we're building those gates. We're using this technology, RFID, and we're having issue for scalability and functionality." And I'm like, "Look, I will give it a shot." So I improvised myself as an engineer consultant, even though it was my first year of engineering. And we built the hardware for a company called Intelitix, which grew up to be the first and one of the biggest RFID access control technology in the space, from Tomorrowland to Lollapalooza to the Olympics. They did a lot of the events. Then during that process, I figured that, there's a problem. Most of the businesses that have a good business case, they're shitty at building the technology itself. And they have this paradigm shift, which is, hey, I'm good, I have a business, but I have zero technical capabilities, let's say. Let me build a team. And building a team of engineering is not just hiring a bunch of engineers, there's a whole culture around it. I mean, it's hard. Specifically having a team that has cohesion and the knowledge transfer is good and it's flowing. So what happens, as it always happened, the business was leading too much. The tech was not having their say, so we decided to separate. And I founded Intelitix, which became the technology provider for most of those players in the space. Fast forward 20 months, and Eventbrite reached out to us and bought the business. Moved to California and spent, as you said, 4 or 5 years as an entrepreneur resident leading R&D there.
I love it. And I also love that you led off with, I was broke and I wanted the free concert tickets. And look where that brought you in life. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the solution comes from a problem. My problem was I want free tickets. So that's how it goes.
Solution comes from a problem. Honestly, that is probably the overarching theme of the show, too. It's a lot of folks who felt a very acute problem themselves, and then they just took it into their own hands to find a solution. And whether that's, again, not necessarily making the tickets themselves, you helped build the actual platforms and products, and that turned into a career. So that is so cool. I'd love to know, too, now, that brought you to ProductShop. You got me up to when Eventbrite took over, but how did you meet the team that you're with today? How did you guys get started on actually creating the solutions? And maybe what was the germ of a company or of an idea that got ProductShop off the ground?
That's a great accident. I'll call it this way. So it started with, actually, I was in Cabaret doing kite surfing with a bunch of my friends. That's after Eventbrite IPO, and we were hanging out. And then COVID hit. This is February 2020, right? So I got stuck on the island for a few weeks, find out a plane to leave. And I used to live at that time in San Francisco, I just want to say it there. And my parents lived in Montreal. So I saw the world shutting down. So I decided to see my parents. So I took the last flight actually out of the Cabaret airport. They're literally closing the doors. Actually, for the sake of conversation, My flight got canceled. The pilot basically of the other flight who was going to Toronto was like, "Where are you heading?" I'm like, "Montreal." He's like, "Your flight is canceled. You're not going anywhere. This is the last flight. You take it." So I just took basically the wrong flight. So I ended up in Toronto, hitchhiked almost to Montreal. It took me like 2 days to get to Montreal after. And then I like stuck in Montreal with everyone and with COVID hitting, looking at the news. And I'm like, hey, I want to build some new shit. So events were illegal, as you remember. So let's just say Eventbrite was not really an option at that time. So I decided to leave. I mean, like the people at Eventbrite were awesome actually with that process. That was super cool as well. They were letting people go and like, hey, if you want to jump the bridge, it's like, we're happy to like facilitate that and everything. So there was super cool team on that. And so basically I'm like, hey, I don't have a job. I have a place to stay. I have nothing to do and stuck at home. So let's build some cool shit. My goal was to build a team of engineers to hack things around. And I'm like, hey, how do you finance it except out of pocket, right? So it started out of pocket and then it scaled up. I'm like, let's find a customer in the consultant base that can fund our internal products. The whole goal was always to build IP and invest in multiple projects, right? So scalability here. Not just doing pure consulting. Actually, we don't charge by the hour, we charge by the project, so we take the risk. And so first one was actually, we had a project that was a project actually against the re-election of Trump at one point, which was basically, hey, can we build a Twitter bot? Every time Trump tweets, we give money to the Democratic Party. So we scaled it to a few $1 million of like donation. It was called Defeat by Tweet, if I remember right. So we built all the scalability. Every time he tweets, you can give money against him, basically. And it's actually brilliant because, like, politics are about opposition, right? I hate this guy more than I love this guy, which is a shame if you ask me. So you can drive energy a lot more by saying, I hate you than I love you for some reason. So if you see someone tweeting something they hate, you can give money against them. Worked pretty well. I don't know what they are nowadays, but that was one of the first projects. Then we worked with POS. We went to event space. We scaled up. Now we're like 12 employees in Montreal. We do projects from Caterpillar to, Meow Wolf in the event space. We have a branch that is more infrastructure for events, and we have hardware also that is pretty deep, and it's been pretty good.
That is so cool. And one thing that I think is really cool about you guys too is, and I want to call back, is you're building IP. You're not just consulting. So like you want a stake in these solutions and you want to make sure that they're going to go out there into the world and it not just be a one and done thing. So you're setting up for long-term success because you have a vested interest in it, which I think is so cool. Now, another thing I want to actually pick your brain on is doing business in Montreal specifically, because you hadn't necessarily planned to go home. It sounds like the world just collided against you, but in your favor in the long term, because now you're doing this awesome stuff at ProductShop. I have a million questions about this Defeat by Truth platform too, but I'll save that for after the call. I'm pretty sure I've heard of that, if not signed up for it at one point. But digging back into the Montreal of it all, how is it compared doing business there versus your experience working elsewhere in other, not even countries or municipalities, but just the community here and the projects you get exposure to?
So, I'll leapfrog on one thing. You probably heard about the Central Bank of Canada saying productivity in Canada is really low, right? By head count. You probably saw those news. It's the case of Montreal. So what happens is the tech space in Montreal is starving, if I call it this way. Like early stage investors do not exist or super small. The one that exists are pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. No problem with them. It's just there's not enough diversity in the space. Tech companies are only strategies to hit the US market and try to raise in the US. People, it's not a culture, and I say maybe it's like Quebec specific, and I'm gonna have some people like shouting at me after that, but there's a cultural maybe of like entrepreneurship. Even though Quebec is pretty entrepreneurial when it comes to startup and like taking risk, it's just I never got it, but it's not as thriving at other places that I moved around with. Like specifically Spain. Spain is a great example when like there is a tech space. There's no money, but there's a tech space, and people are trying. And the market is super small, but they're still trying, right? They don't have our reach like US market. They have European market, which is highly regulated and everything, but it's still trying and still thriving to a certain extent. Well, in Quebec and Montreal specifically, I see a lot of entrepreneurs trying, but like they can't raise capital. The talent is there. Most of the time what happens is an acquisition, big company from the US come in and buy you. That's kind of like the way of success here. And that's a bit of shame if you ask me. There's a bunch of players that are trying to change it. I'll name one, Triptych Fund in Montreal, new fund. They're pretty small, but they're trying to do change here. And they're basically like ex-entrepreneur from the Montreal that moved to the Valley. They're coming back here. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not Silicon Valley, so that's for sure. And it's not China either, which is thriving right now. Yeah,
Oh
that's what
yeah.
I say.
Yeah. And like I'm calling you here from Boston. So again, the
Mm.
China of it all is the big headline here in our region. But just speaking to like Quebec and Montreal specifically and everything like that, not to be critical, I do hear what you're saying on a lot of it. It feels like the ambitions are always towards the United States. When think globally in some instances, or also just don't think necessarily towards the acquisition. So again, I don't have examples to pull out of my back pocket, but that is something that I feel like I've heard a lot. And I also think that's reflected in some of the changes that they've pitched on like the non-dilutive funding side, like the
Yeah.
CDAEIA starting in January. It's being designed to again shore up some of those stats about like there just being no productivity in the province, or there just being like less enthusiasm about
It
building new products
it's
in the
it's
province.
it's a lagging productivity, and I won't blame it on entrepreneurs. Actually, I'll blame it on big companies also that don't give shit, like possibility to smaller players to actually access. I see it myself. 90% of my revenue are US based. I am having a struggling to get business in Quebec. I get business in Ontario. I get business in BC. When it comes to Quebec, I don't know why. When we pitch in Quebec, I mean, I live here. I love the place. It's just really hard, and I see it like this barrier to taking risk for bigger entrepreneurs, biggest businesses to smaller is not really happening. And I mean, we can jump into government contract. You probably saw what happened with government Quebec, like a few $1 billion of software they can't even build. Which I know 10 software company in Montreal could solve the problem for a tenth of the price, but that's its own thing.
No, I love, but I really appreciate too that you've emphasized too,
Mm.
like there is the talent there. Like there's no lack of talent, there's no lack of brain power in Quebec or in the province, but it's just for one reason or another, whether it's those big companies not giving their share of the pie or not supporting the lower guys in the ecosystem, like we got to lift the whole harbor for all ships to rise. That's kind of how I view it, and don't see a lot of that support necessarily happening out the gate. But again, I'm not an expert in the province, just my outside in perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm thinking too, I know I mentioned like CDAE and how they're making improvements to the program to make it more generous, especially for more future facing technologies. Like they want to accommodate for the AI of it all. That's also been very focused on software development and not a lot of the hard stuff, the manufacturing stuff. And that's why I think a lot of the businesses you're supporting, they're not necessarily here. They're not necessarily in Quebec. But like even at the shred level too, like there's the open comment period right now for the new draft legislation. That is designed to make it a lot friendlier to those smaller companies. Because again, if we're not building those businesses today, what's going to be the Shopify tomorrow? To just pull the most obvious example out of thin air. We got to enhance all of these programs, not just for the non-dilutive government funding, but so that companies can have a diversified strategy that looks good to investors, that demonstrates, hey, we're doing something that's truly innovative. The government wants to get in on what we're doing and get in on this yourselves. Like, don't let it necessarily just be something that gets snapped up the second that it looks attractive by a US company. Help us build this presence in Canada. So I know that went a little all over the place and wide ranging, but your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, Shred, we use Shred a lot. I mean, I love the program. Actually, it's really competitive compared to the US. I mean, I think you guys changed the rules, but don't quote me on this. There's some new stuff on your end, but like I think we discussed about it. I've been receiving Shred for years, and it's been like saving the business. Don't get me wrong. The only concern that I have with Shred is the payout periods. It's you and your luck. I mean, I did it 5 times with ProductShop. This is the 5th time, and hopefully no one from Shred is listening. I mean, if they do, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just you guys like are really like random on the payouts. It's either like early. I got it sometimes paid in less than a month, and I got sometimes taking like 12 months, even though there's no audits. So it's just interesting how if they structure the program well, they should do payouts per month. They should offer actually businesses say, hey, look, instead of giving you a big check tomorrow and you don't know when you're gonna get it, how about I finance you the whole year? And
Yeah,
this way, they will probably smooth the curve because I mean, business like me, it's all about cash flow. Yes,
absolutely.
I have contract coming in the pipeline, multiple X of my revenue of the year. I get people that owe me money because you have account payables and deliveries, right? And I do manufacturing. It's like upfront some of the cost to my manufacturing, to my suppliers. So I'm always into a cash crunch. And tech in general, there's no company that tells you there's
Right.
cash flow. It's always cash crunch because like you have a lot of like employees and salaries to maintain. So one thing I don't know if they're open to have a discussion about it is, hey, can you just like spread the payouts for the whole over year instead of, or giving it as an option instead of randomly telling you you're going to get paid whenever we decide. And for example, right now, Shred, as you know, there's two pieces, right? There's a federal one and a provincial one. Example of my year, the federal one got paid in less than a month, which is a big chunk. That's great. The second smaller chunk, like a third of it or whatever, it's been 9 months and they still haven't paid us. And like we're applying for this year, and they didn't pay last year. And it's not like there's an audit. It's just, oh, we're taking time to pay you. So this is something, I mean, you can ask Joshua on your team. It's like, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of players. So that's, if they can play with the rules of payouts, I think people would love Shred more, even though it's actually really good already.
Absolutely. It's a couple of things. First off, on the US versus Shred of it all, yeah, we have made changes down here. Shred has always been more generous, and it's going to still be more generous, even with the tweaks that we've made down here in the States. There's more of an opportunity, but the actual like 60 cents on a dollar potential that you can claim on the federal level is so much more generous than what we have in the States. Second point about the payouts and those schedules too. Yeah, that is a pain that I just really don't understand why the CRA hasn't addressed it yet. And I don't want to be overcritical of them because it's a great program. And obviously our bread and butter is working with the CRA and Shred on all of that. But to your point, like cash flow is the number one issue with tech companies and with businesses like yours, even if it's a venture studio or design suite. How can you play around with that? They need that consistent schedule. You need to know there's not flexibility on your end. So the government shouldn't be flexible when it is such a key piece of funding for everybody. And then the third point, there's a chorus right now of people who are kind of criticizing the program. I'm thinking of, I said Shopify earlier, Harley Finkelstein. He had a not scathing, but a very, very detailed critique of the program from the top down and how to make it more generous and more predictable for companies, which I think we agree with, because I think that's that predictability too. Like if you're doing the R&D, the claim's approved, there's no audit there. Where's my cash? I know that we think on average it comes out about roughly it comes out after 2 months after claim is the average in the past, but it's gotten wildly variable over the past few years. And for many reasons, obviously, governments are governments, politics are politics. But I think right now the new draft legislation addresses some of it, but
Mhm.
even our own team, we agree there's a lot more that needs to be done. And like we have our quick fund program. We front a portion of the money for people who qualify for that, which is awesome. So I got to shout out that program because it's something that we want people to take advantage of. But it'd be even more powerful if you could just get that whole refund when you have it approved. Like just get it out there. And don't surprise us with the audit at the end of the day. I digress. Lots of really good points, though, there that, again, I think we take to heart. And like you said, I've had conversations with Joshua about a lot of this stuff. And yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, like there is a way to solve it, in my opinion, which is I think Shred is trying to boil the ocean. It's targeting like every size of business. I think there's like, as you said, Shopify claim Shred, my small business claim Shred, right? Everyone can do it. It's like it should be program specific for sizes too. It's say, hey, like players with smaller capabilities should be like at least prioritized because I'm sure like the Shred claim of Shopify is more complex than mine. I mean, I hope so for the size they have. So, and, I mean, I'd love to know who does that for them. Like, I would love to see how big their Shred is. Anyway, so, I think is there a cap on this? Is it like a $2 million cap, or it would decreases after 2 million, something like that?
Exactly. Yeah. I'll put those notes in the blog notes. But yeah, there is a cap and it does decrease after a while. There's a phase out period. So yeah, it's so funny too. I'm thinking about a conversation I was having with our CEO yesterday was about just kind of like the program, like, yeah, you need to make it easier and more accessible for the companies that need the money most. That's what the priority should be. We also don't want to simplify the program to the point where it becomes like a source of fraud, where the government is subsidizing people who like wrote a crappy claim and then they just want the funding and there wasn't the validation. We got to find a middle ground. We got to make it so that you can still get the expertise to validate that the innovation is worthy of the funding, but let's not hold back the funding just because bureaucracy. And yeah, I think lots of politics we could get into on that one.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's always related to that. Like I'm on another topic. If when I covered a bit, I saw the federal government in Canada pushing a bit more AI grants. So
Yeah.
there have been like new envelopes and everything, and we applied to one, my company actually, because as a venture studio, I just want to go back to what we do. As a venture studio, we create projects, right? So we have we ideate, and we test market, and we scale operation, right? Our client goal it's sometimes out of the house, which is basically client projects, and sometimes in house, like our own project. And we take equity in most of them. I mean, obviously, Caterpillar is not one of them because they don't give equity. I wish I could, but in other players, we do from a size of 10 under 10 million valuation to we got players to almost a billion right now in our portfolio, and like that give us a lot of broad spectrum of like what the government funding or like grants are, and we do apply with our like partners in house. And every time it's always funny because you read the document from the government and it looks like someone who wrote it never built a business ever. So it's like, oh, like let's just fill up this document, and you see like it's 70 pager of form. And I'm like, we're getting good at it. I mean, you guys do it. So you get at this point getting good. But as an engineer, if I read the documentation, I don't even understand it. If you I need someone that like can do the technical writing for me, that convert what I say to something that the government want, which is kind of a disconnect when you think about it, because I'm technically a specialist. I should know what I'm talking about, right? But when I see the document requirement, I'm like, hey, this is really off from what I'm expecting per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I don't love that that's the reality, but it is music to my ears to hear too that like you need to bridge that expertise, and that's why you come to somebody like Boast. We speak that technical language. We know the vernacular of the actual engineering and the actual tech and actual projects, and how to communicate that into language that the CRA understands. And it's not something that I think anybody inherently has in house. Whether you have your financial planner who's doing your FP&A, or then you have your head of product development or your R&D teams. None of those leaders can bridge that gap to speak the language of the CRA. So, a shout out here, that's where we come in. We try to make it seamless because that'll distract you from your primary marching orders, which is driving innovation, creating these projects that are actually going to explode, expand, and also you're going to have a vested interest in because you're vested in them literally. So, I hear you loud and clear. I also love to, again, that I could fold in that Boast shout out, but that's the kind of challenge that wakes us up every day. So I'm excited about that. Now, moving on to some future facing stuff, you guys, you listed a lot of projects. You work with companies across a wide spectrum. You've mentioned 10 million to 1 billion. What's on your roadmap? What's on the agenda? What is something cool that you have that we're looking forward to? I know you're doing a lot of traveling.
Okay, so there's
too.
yeah, there's a reason for it. I can't like that's a hard one a bit, but I'll go for it. I think I'm allowed. Nobody's gonna blame me for that. So we're working with a company called Phoenix in LA. These guys are killing it. So they're in the event space. They're building software that solve kind of like event operations. I come from Eventbrite. I mean, I come from events, so that's my core, right? And that's super cool because what we're building right now is a way to solve a bunch of like the hurdles. I call it the operating system for venues and festivals. Coming from that space, what happens mostly is like the market is highly fragmented. You have like 15 different software, like, you get your ticketing company, and then you get your like, guest list management, and you get your table management, and you get, your POS in this side. So it's like, so if you're an organizer that does more than one festival, let's say, you end up having like a team of like 40 people to manage. And finance after that in the back office, they need to collide all those numbers and get a reporting, right? So these guys, Phoenix, are solving that by building a software that, and also hardware to some extent, that allows like venue experiences. And Phoenix right now works with Insomniac, which is one of the biggest, like I'll call it a private equity, but I don't know how to define it. It's one of the biggest event group in the US right now. They own EDC, they own over 30 clubs, and most of them are like, like Space in Miami or Avalon in LA, which is actually nice. I went last weekend for the first time. Really nice venue. So these guys are really killing it and growing. They're raising their round right now. I was with them. The founders have great experience. That's one of them. I really like the project. Coming soon for like public offering on that one, like for all the companies that want to use it. And I like it. On the other hand, we work, I mean, with a bunch of other players, like right now, what I'm excited about is Billfolds, one of our clients, based in New York. These guys do POS specific only for events. They do one of the biggest venues actually in New York was Brooklyn Mirage. If you haven't been, it's a pretty cool venue indoor and outdoor. We're actually building their hardware. These guys are committed to build one of the best, purchase experience in venues and events, and they're killing it. Shout out to the guys there. They're doing good work. I mean, they don't stop. I mean, it's crazy. I see their schedule and hardware. Like they have thousands of devices that deploy every week, every weekend, and it's just like nonstop. So you get the guy. I was with the VP of product yesterday on the call, And on one side, the guy is like working with us with the next generation of hardware, and the other side, he's managing events that are live. And I'm like, how can you like think future and like and like real time dealing with situations? So that capacity is crazy. But like these guys, and they give us opportunities to test hardware in the field. So sometimes like we build something, I'm like, hey, look, Xerxes, his name is Xerxes. Xerxes, I'm not sure about it. It might work, it might not. He says, just ship it to New York. I get you a venue, we'll test it there. So we can like test and iterate on the hardware, which is awesome as an engineering perspective. Those are the two cool things that I'm working on right now, but there's plenty more.
Oh my God. No, that is all so cool. Again, Insomniac, I think I looked this up last time because I was like, they don't have a venue in Boston, but I definitely went to one in Miami, I'm pretty sure. And again,
So
I'm
they
not
own
far from Brooklyn, not
space.
the other one. Yeah. But
They
no,
own
this is
space. It's one of the coolest club. Yeah.
yeah. Now, speaking of events too, I know that our team again, we're going to be up at All In Montreal in a couple
Yep.
weeks. We're doing a very exclusive event with your team too, so I won't share too many details on this. But assuming our show gets out before that, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Anyone who's listening who will be in town and maybe wants an invite, because we will get one over to you guys, and you can come meet me at Ahmed in person. That would be my ideal, but. All to say, I know we're about at time. Anything else you want to get in before I do a quick outro?
I was going to say thank you guys for the support. I mean, Boast has been super cool for ProductShop since the beginning. I think we operated with you for the last 4 years or 5 years, and you've been really supportive. And I like the profile. I mean, I dealt with other businesses that do the same thing, and sometimes it was lacking communication, and you guys have been killing it for us. You've been solving that. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
I love to hear that. And honestly, hearing about like the communication and the human side of it all is what is music to my ears. Just because, sure, we have AI in it, but it's that human expertise. It's that human touch point. It's that person who can actually come in and speak your language that I think is our biggest asset to all the customers that we have here. So to hear that from you, I'm going to let the team know that that's exactly what we want to hear at the end of the day. So if we can help you innovate and help you get that cash, absolutely, we want to be on your team. So this is good stuff.